So when we talk about the colonization of North America, it wasn't just one single story. Not at all. It was more like a three-way, high-stakes competition for an entire continent. And each of the big players, Spain, England, and France, came to the game with a completely different playbook.
Here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll set the stage and look at America before any Europeans showed up. Then, we'll dive into the three very distinct playbooks for Spain, England, and France. After that, we'll see what happened when those playbooks collided. Spoiler, it got messy. And finally, how the outcome totally redrew the map of the world.
Okay, first things first, let's get one thing straight. The New World wasn't new at all. Long before any European ships hit the horizon, this was a continent already buzzing with hundreds of distinct nations. I'm talking vast agricultural confederations, nomadic hunting societies, each with its own incredibly complex culture.
So just how populated was it? Well, while the exact numbers are debated, some scholars believe the population of North America alone could have been as high as 18 million people. The point is, this was not some empty wilderness waiting to be found. It was a homeland. And that brings us right to this big word, colonization. It's easy to just think of it as settling new land, right? But the real key, the part that changes everything, is the second half of that definition, establishing control over the people already living there. That drive for control is what shaped every single thing that came next.
So what was driving this intense push for control? Well, it pretty much boils down to three powerful motivations, which you'll often hear called the 3 Gs. First up, God, the religious mission to spread Christianity. Second, you have gold, that relentless hunt for wealth, for resources, and for faster trade routes. And finally, glory, that fierce national pride, the competition to build the biggest, most powerful empire on the planet.
All right, so let's dig into the first playbook, Spain's. Their approach was, let's just say, aggressive and direct. It was really built on two main ideas, conquest and conversion.
The Spanish goals were brutally efficient. They were there to extract wealth, and that meant gold. They set up missions to, well, forcibly convert native populations to Catholicism, and they created these huge sugarcane plantations, running them on a system of enslaved labor they called the encomienda system. This was a playbook all about pure extraction and domination.
And the result? I mean, it was absolutely catastrophic. This quote from historian Brenda Swan really says it all. In a place like Florida, the original inhabitants were almost completely wiped out by this combination of slavery, disease, and war. It's just a stark, brutal look at the human cost of that conquest model.
Now, let's switch gears and look at England. They came into this game with a totally different strategy. Their playbook wasn't about a quick grab for cash. It was focused on long-term settlement, on building a new society from the ground up. So, unlike Spain, the reasons English people came over were way more diverse. Yeah, for sure, the government wanted raw materials to fuel its economy. That's a system called mercantilism. But a lot of the settlers themselves had totally different goals. They wanted to put down roots, escape political chaos back home, or find religious freedom, like the Pilgrims, Puritans, and Quakers we've all heard about.
But here's where things got really messy. This was the fundamental point of friction. While the English often went through the motions of buying land, their whole concept of private property just clashed head-on with Native American views of communal land. Broken promises and ignored agreements became this constant, simmering source of conflict.
And that brings us to our third and, wow, a radically different playbook. France's strategy wasn't built on conquest or settlement, but on something else entirely, partnership and trade. Now, to be fair, they didn't start out this way. Early on, you had guys like Jacques Cartier who were just openly hostile, even kidnapping Iroquois people. But the French learned pretty quickly that brute force just wasn't going to work. The real game changer was Samuel de Champlain. He was the one who realized that a friendly, trade-based relationship was way more profitable and sustainable.
And the heart and soul of this new strategy was the fur trade. And you know what? It was a genuinely two-way street. The French got a massive, steady supply of beaver pelts, which were like gold back in Europe. And in return, Native Americans got access to European goods like metal pots, weapons, and textiles that totally transformed their way of life.
What's really fascinating about the French model is the cultural integration. See, France never sent huge numbers of settlers over, so their whole playbook was driven by economic necessity. Their power came from alliances, not from numbers. So you had French fur traders literally living among their trading partners, learning their languages, and even marrying Native American women. They created these deep family and economic bonds that were just completely unique among the three powers.
But you know, three empires with three totally different game plans on the same continent, they can't share it forever. It was just inevitable that these competing playbooks would eventually collide. Hard. Let's see how that went down.
The Fox Wars are a perfect and honestly tragic example of this. So you have the Fox tribe, and they try to play the field, right? They start trading with the English. Well, the French saw that as a major threat to their business and their alliances. So what do? They armed the Fox's enemies. When the Fox protest by blockading a French river, the French response was just unbelievably brutal, ending in a massacre. It just shows how European rivalries poured gasoline on conflicts that were already there.
But all of that was really just the opening act. The final winner-take-all showdown for the continent was the French and Indian War. This was it. France and its huge network of native allies going up against the might of Great Britain.
This single war would completely change the map of America, and the consequences? They would echo for centuries. Let's break down what happened next.
This thing wasn't short. The war raged across the frontier for nearly a decade, kicking off in 1754 and finally ending with the world-changing Treaty of Paris in 1763.
And the outcome was a total, decisive victory for Great Britain. France was just completely defeated and forced to give up all of its territory east of the Mississippi River. Just like that, with the stroke of a pen, the French Empire in North America was basically erased from the map.
So here's the really crucial takeaway. It wasn't just the French nation that lost. Their entire playbook of partnership, of trade, it was defeated. And the Native American nations who had built generations of alliances and trade with the French, they were now left to face the British and their relentless playbook of settlement and land acquisition all by themselves.
And that leaves us with one big final question to think about. We know what happened when the English playbook of settlement won out. It eventually led to the United States. But it's worth asking, how might the entire story of this continent be different today if the French playbook of partnership had actually prevailed instead?